Hello, this is Dr. Mark Miravalle, and I would like to speak to you about the upcoming Synod on Synodality. As many of you know, our Holy Father, Pope Francis, has asked for a two-phase process by which the Church, the faithful, the clergy, all members of the people of God can bring to the Holy Father needs and concerns they think important for the good of the Church. Synodality, this process of walking or journeying together, is the expression that allows everyone of the Church to manifest to the Holy Father what we believe to be important for positive dimensions for the Church and ultimately for the world. Now, there's two phases to this synodal process. The first phase, which started in May of 2021, will end in April of 2022. And that's the gathering phase. That's the informational phase by which each diocese is supposed to gather the responses of clergy and faithful, people of God, and even those who are not necessarily Catholic, to bring to the second phase, which will be a synthesis of that material, ultimately submitted to a synod, a meeting of bishops in Rome that will happen in 2023. So in this first phase, which ends technically in April of this year, here's the opportunity of the faithful to manifest their mind about things they think will be of value for the Church right now. That includes a church, as the handbook on this synod on synodality states, the Vademecum says, is in the midst of a lot of global challenges, of pandemic, of societal crises, economic crises. You know the long list of challenges that we face today. Here becomes a very important opportunity for us to manifest to ultimately the Holy Father and the bishops that will be at the Synod in 2023 what we think would be valuable remedies for the situation, for the various crises we're facing. If you are like me, you see the Mother of Jesus, you see Our Lady, you see the spiritual mother of all peoples, not as ancillary, but as essential to the remedy for the Church and for the world. It's her intercession that will bring us the true graces of Jesus, that will bring us true renewal, authentic reform and conversion in the Church. And like all things of our Holy Catholic faith, it's not to say that there's not other elements that will be positive on the natural, societal level, ecclesial level, in terms of what we do. But there is still the deep conviction in many of our hearts that ultimately it will be Our Lady, it will be the spiritual mother of all peoples that will intercede with grace, because many of our challenges today are not something we can solve on our own. I think while positive participation is very important, we want to avoid any sense of a Pelagian or semi-Pelagian concept. That is, that we can fix the problems in the Church just by communication. I think that might be naive. So here's our opportunity to speak to our diocesan representative for the Synod on my conviction, and I pray it's also your conviction, that it's Our Lady who will ultimately bring peace and grace to a church in crisis and to a world in crisis. And it's very interesting that in the handbook for the Synod, it is very clearly articulated, number one, that the bishop must appoint a diocesan representative for the Synod to gather the information. And of course, you're talking about well over 4,000 different dioceses, and so there'll be a great diversity of how this is done. But it is the direction that came from the Vatican instruction to each bishop to say that the bishop must appoint a diocesan contact person. My encouragement to you today, my friends, if you share my conviction that along with other good practical means and suggestions, that the ultimate remedy for the church and the world in crisis is the intercession of the Mother of God, the spiritual mother of all peoples, and the acknowledgement that she is indeed the spiritual mother of all peoples. So I will be contacting my diocesan contact person, and it's also very clear in the Vade Mecum, in the manual that's sent out, the handbook, that there should be creative means for the diocesan representative, the contact person, to get information from people. And that includes, because of things like pandemic and restrictions, it could mean that it's not always possible to just meet and to dialogue. And therefore, there should be a disposition for every diocesan contact person to be, as the document says, as the handbook says, creative and inclusive. That is to say, even people that are not of the faith can participate in this process. So clearly, people of the faith can, and no one is to be excluded. That's the overall tenor of the instruction manual, the Vade Mecum. So that means obviously you and me. And our conviction, if you share mine, that it is Our Lady. The acknowledgement, the proclamation, the declaration that she is the mother of all peoples, so she can fully bring grace and peace to the world. This is really embodied in the message of Fatima, that in the end, Our Lady's Immaculate Heart will triumph and an era of peace will be brought to the world. Well, that's going to happen when we acknowledge that she is the spiritual mother of all peoples. And I would suggest, contacting your diocesan representative for the Synod. Most dioceses will have this up on their diocesan website. If not, you may have to do something similar to what Our Lady did for the wedding guests at Cana and the wedding couple. You might have to assert. You might have to make a phone call. Is that not worth trying to get to the Synod in Rome and ultimately to the Holy Father? Our conviction, I pray it's yours as well as mine, that Our Lady is the answer. She is the remedy. Far more than our discussions, far more than legitimate clarifications that can come from our dialogue. Ultimately, it's her grace and her intercession that will bring us peace to the world and grace to the world. And it's not an either or, it's a both and. But I would say, certainly it is my conviction that Our Lady is primary in bringing us the graces of Jesus, which is what true reform is in the church. And that will also manifest itself in many personal, relational, societal, communal, and ecclesial ways. But I believe it is time to speak for Our Lady in this Synod of Synodality. And the best way we can do that is to respond what the Holy Father is calling us to do, to speak our minds to our diocesan contact persons, our representatives. So in some cases, your diocese may allow you to email in a response. In other cases, it may be something that you can actually just do on the site. Again, that's going to be your Cana initiative. Contact your diocese and find out how you can send a message, whether it be an email or a written letter, to the diocesan contact person for the Synod on Synodality. My friends, this may be a very blessed and anointed opportunity for the Marian people of the world to express, if it is indeed your conviction, that Our Lady is the remedy. She, more than anything else, will bring forward grace and peace and renewal and reform to the church. So I ask you to prayerfully consider taking a bold action. Contact your diocesan representative, your diocesan contact person for the Synod on Synodality. and inquire how you can give your feedback. This manual repeatedly says inclusion, no one should be left out, and be creative. Well, that should also be embodied and implemented by your diocesan contact person. If there's a reference, well, we really prefer that you come to a meeting, and you might say, well, I'm not able to come to that meeting, but here's my feedback. Of course, if you're able to go to the meeting, that's fine as well. You get the idea. Let's do this for Our Lady, and let's do it for the Church. So once again, I encourage you to contact your diocesan representative as the period of information gathering is going to conclude shortly. That's April 2022. This is really our last chance to voice that we believe, if indeed it is your conviction, Our Lady, the Mother of all peoples, needs to be proclaimed. And I will be articulating that I believe it must be and should be ultimately a dogma, that the Pope should solemnly recognize in a dogmatic form that Our Lady is spiritual Mother of all peoples, so that she can then fully intercede with the graces and peaces that the Church and the world so desperately need. So all this can be boiled down to you sending an email to your diocesan representative saying, I believe that Mary should be proclaimed the spiritual Mother of all peoples as a dogma which will bring grace and peace to the world. It can be as simple as that one line. So please speak on behalf of Our Lady in this synod for synodality, because ultimately we're speaking for ourselves, right? Ultimately, we're calling upon what we believe, if you share my conviction, the greatest means by which we can bring grace and peace to the Church and the world, both of which are in crisis, and that's through the intercession of Mary, the mediatrix of all graces. Tell your representative, if it is your conviction, that you would like our Holy Father to proclaim Mary as the spiritual Mother of all peoples, as an ultimate remedy in this dialogue for the Church for grace and peace for humanity. Thanks so much for listening. God bless you all.